there, Stampers. This is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. Today we're going to do a couple different things. We're going to play around with the Stamparatus. We're also going to use the color sprinkles on a couple different kinds of paper. I don't know if you remember Brusho that was in our last catalog. We kind of came out with it for a little while. And it was nice, it was fun, people liked it, but now we have it in our own colors. Part of the whole reason I love Stampin' Up! Is because everything is so color coordinated. And so now our sprinkles don't just come in a red, a yellow, a blue, they come in Stampin' Up! Colors. So we have, let me grab them, Melon Mambo, Bermuda Bay, Granny Apple Green, Gorgeous Grape, Daffodil Delight, and Mango Melody. So now we have sprinkles that are in our colors, and they are so much better containers as well. What they have now is you can take the lid off, and instead of having to poke holes in them with a safety pin and all that, you can just open them up, and they have these little holes pre-done in the top, and then they close up. So you can set them out on your workspace. I tend to leave them with the lid right in front of them so I know what color I'm working with, because they don't necessarily look like the color they're going to come out to. Let's see, I'm not going to use this one today. I'm going to use green. See, the green is actually orange powder, but once we add the water, it is going to turn green. And we're going to create this sweet little scene using a new stamp set, new in June actually, but it's called the Silhouette Scenes. And it comes with a coordinating set of dies called the Sweet Silhouettes. And these have some wonderful words that come with it. They're nice big sentiment words. This one says adventure. And then we have forever. And then we have inspire. And then there's a dandelions, and then the tree. And I've already gone ahead and cut out the tree using the die and black cardstock on the Big Shot. So those are pre-cut for us, so you didn't have to sit here and watch me do that. I've also brought in 3 different kinds of paper. Because the way the sprinkles work, it's going to be a little bit different depending on which cardstock you're using. So I have here some standard Whisper White, some watercolor paper, and then some shimmery white. So we have 3 different kinds of papers. And I have 2 different ways to water them down. And I'm going to come in with some, this is an extra piece of the paper, the graph paper, because I know we're going to be getting wet and I don't want to wet down the surface that we're going to be doing everything else on. So I've just folded this up a few times, and this is actually the color paper. I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to start with the Aqua Painter. The Aqua Painter is a little brush-tipped paintbrush, really, but it's got water in the barrel of it. And so as I color with it or squeeze on the barrel, water is going to come out through the bristles of the brush and enable us to watercolor. I do this a lot using our re-inkers or the inside of our pads. Can just color directly onto our stamping surface. For this, let's see, I'm going to start with the Granny Apple Green. And like I said, these are going to come out in kind of a yellowish orange sprinkles. And you have to be very gentle with them. I have a tendency to be a little bit heavy-handed, and we don't really need that much. And so I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on there. What I did there, that might even be too much. Oh, actually, this is the shimmer white. I apologize. So we're using shimmer white cardstock. And I'm just going to brush off a little bit of the crystals because I want to make sure the green is on the bottom. So again, this is shimmery white cardstock and the Aqua Painter. And we're just coloring up some of the sprinkles. And see how vibrant and dark this comes out? It looked like I hardly put any of the crystal down, but yet we have this much color to work with. So they are very concentrated. so they will last you forever. I mean, you'd have to do a whole lot of watercoloring to use up the entire bottle. So that's the grass on the shimmery white. Here's our watercolor paper. So next I'm going to come in with this one. And again, I'm trying to be very careful. Don't forget to comment, like, and share, all those good things. I have actually a couple prizes I need to mail out. I'm missing some addresses. So I will be contacting you guys. If you are not on my mailing list and I don't have your address, then I don't know where to mail your prize to. So when you sign up for my newsletter, make sure that you include your birthday so I can send you a birthday card, but also your address so when you win a prize, I know where to send it to. And if you share, I guess you have to tell me that you share it, because somebody's privacy settings are not letting me see who shared it. So make sure that that's in there. And if you're out there, you know, let me know you're here so I know I'm not talking to myself. And if you're watching this during replay, please go ahead and type in replay. It's always nice to know that I'm not talking to myself. And this is the regular Whisper White. This is our standard Whisper White. I mean, and it works. Maybe I should have gotten it more wet first. Maybe had the water a little more even, because as you can see, it got a little darker where it first hit. And then the shimmery white, I get a better look. I think I like that better than the Whisper White, because the shimmery white has a little more of a satin finish to it because it has the glimmer over the top. But I think what looks the best is watercolor paper, because we are watercoloring. So I've done the grass, and now I'm going to come in with the Mango Melody, and I'm just going to place this right in the center to be our focal point, like the sunset. And I can just take the same brush I was using. Let's get some tissue, and I'm just going to wad up some tissue, paper towels, something, and just run a little bit of clear water through there and wipe it off so that I don't have green in my bristles anymore. They are stained, so they look blue, but they're not, they're clear. And I'm just going to take and color in with the Mango Melody. And I want to keep this kind of centrally located because I want it to be the sun. But then I'm going to put yellow in the sky and maybe mix in a little bit of this to get a full sunset or sunrise effect. So I'm just painting. Like I said, I'm going to clean this off again, just run some clear water through it by squeezing the barrel. Wait till it runs almost a little bit clear, and then I can come in with the next color. So this is the Daffodil Delight. Yes, this is in our main catalog. So they're right here on the bottom of page 179. Those are our pigment sprinkles. You get 6 colors for $23. And they, of course, can be ordered from my store online. Okay, this is Daffodil Delight. So I'm going to sprinkle just a bit of this. Again, I feel like I'm being heavy-handed because it does not take much of this stuff. And then I'm just squeezing the barrel to let out some water. And these are very vibrant colors. So if you're looking for something subtle, this probably isn't what you're looking for. But if you like bright, vibrant colors, this is really fun stuff to work with. I have a girl on my team that's actually, I consider her more of an artist. She does some beautiful cards I'm going to be featuring on my blog. Because she doesn't do her own blog because she doesn't think she's good enough. But oh my goodness, this girl is just an artist. She's going to send me some regular cards first, but when she does watercoloring and stuff, it comes out amazing. I'm a crafter and a stamper. I'm not an artist. That's why I like stamps, because I don't have to be able to draw. I can just use my stamps, and it does all the drawing for me. So I'm just going over the edge where the two blend together, just to feather it out. And there you have it. So again, this is the watercolor paper. If you want this to lay really super flat, I would suggest maybe spritzing the back with a little bit of water so it doesn't warp. You want to keep it kind of even. This is our shimmery white, so we'll do this one. Again, very, very, very little. I did yellow. I want mango. See, that's why we're supposed to leave them by the lids, because they look so much alike. So here's our mango melody for our sun. And it actually picked up a little bit of the green from the bottom, but that's okay. We'll just call that a reflection, right? And then the Daffodil Delight. So again, a lot like the Brusho, but in our Stampin' Up! Colors. And I think actually more vibrant. For some reason, I find these colors to be a whole lot brighter than I did the Brusho. Still all beautiful, but you can't beat being able to have the coordination that Stampin' Up! Gives you with the way everything coordinates so wonderfully. Because now you don't have to try to figure out what color will go with this. We know that we can use the Granny Apple Green, the Mango Melody, or the Daffodil Delight, and it's all going to coordinate perfectly. And then we can also flip through our catalog and not only find the cardstock, but also ribbons and embellishments and inks and all sorts of things that will just work wonderfully together. Oops, picked up a little green. And so see, this is the Whisper White. And again, a lot of people really love the Whisper White. They must have to do a little more blending than I'm doing, because I'm not finding the sun to blend out nearly as well on this paper than it does on the watercolor. The watercolor has the ability to draw the ink out through the fibers of the paper, which I think comes in very handy. White. And this is our plain Whisper White. Like I said, it does work. It's not my favorite, but it does work. I want to try to keep the water moisture pretty even, because it kind of draws it up right away, and then you can't mess with it a whole lot, because if you get the Whisper White paper very, very wet, it will pill. The kind of fibers of the paper will start to mat up and be on top of the papers or layer, which is not what we want. So you have to move kind of quickly and not use too much water if you're using the Whisper White papers. I probably should have done this in reverse. I started with the color up top and I'm moving towards the bottom. It probably would have blended better if I had started at the bottom and gone up. On the other two papers, I didn't really need to worry about that, but this Whisper White I do. Someone also suggested you could get the paper wet before you started applying the sprinkles, and that too would help it distribute better. So you can see, like I said, it didn't give me a real good defined edge here, but I don't want to mess with it too much because then the paper, like I said, will start pilling, and that's not what I want. But we can be thankful in that the tree is actually going to cover up quite a bit of it, and then we're going to stamp the girl in the swing, so a lot of it gets covered up. And while I wait for these to dry, because I need it to dry a little bit before I stamp on it, I think I'm going to use the watercolor paper. Like I said, that's the one I like the best. We'll use that for our card, and I'm going to let it finish drying and show you another thing. If we take this is a small piece of the watercolor paper, and you can do a couple different things. I've got a spritzer here. Like I said, these sell in 2 packs in our catalog. They're a very, very fine mist. So it's not the same as the little spritzer I have in the bathroom for, my hair or something you'd use for cleaning. This is much finer. So I just spritz some water on there, and then I can just tap a little bit of the sprinkles. And I do mean tap, very, very gentle. You can see I barely tapped it and just come flying out of there. And it starts to distribute on its own based on the water that's there. And so depending on how much water you already had on the surface, it'll start blending out. Now, if it's not quite enough and you want to come back in and add a little more water, see, the more water you add, the more it's going to spread out. And I kind of like it like that. I mean, you can keep spritzing and it'll keep running. I mean, so it'll almost get tie-dye looking. But I think you lose a little bit of the definition when you do that. Part of what I like about the Brusho crystals is you get that crystal look on the edges. And again, if I don't want this to warp on me, I would spritz a little on the back. And you can dab up the extra with some Kleenex or tissue papers, whatever you need. And you can see I didn't even touch that, and it's starting to go down and lose the arch because I sprayed the other side with a little bit of water. Move that to the side. You can choose to start out with crystals already on the paper before you add water completely. Like I said, let's use a little bit of water on the back before I get started, just to make that wet. Okay, so this color is our Bermuda Bay. And so this is going to be a blue, but they come out almost purple. See, and if you don't add much water, you get a lot of kind of different colors. Again, which is really what I like. Part of the whole thing with the pigment sprinkles is you want to just play with them and see what happens. Because you get a different look every single time you do it. If you find something and you like it and you try to repeat it, I swear it doesn't work. Because they react differently each time. Melon Wombo. Okay, so I may have mixed those together a little too much. But again, that's what I said. You mess around with it and see, how they mix together. If you mix them too much, like I could add more water to this and it'll really muddy together, but it just muddies them together completely and there's no way to unseparate them, so you lose all your color definition. See, and I'm mixing these up. I keep telling you, you need to leave them by the lids because then you know what color you're messing with without having to read the label, but apparently I'm not good at that. Okay, so that's probably way too much sprinkle. And this time I'm going to drop drops onto it with my aqua painter. See, I told you it was too much sprinkle. These are really vibrant, and it does not take much. But if you like dark and vibrant, that's going to dry out to be some beautiful colors. So, you know, I encourage you to get out Brusho and play with it. See what you can do and the different looks you'll come up with. Of course, I don't know where it is right now, but from the dollar store, I picked up one of those round circles that has the little wells in it. And you can use that and sprinkle a little bit of the powder into one of the little wells and add some water. And then you could have your color like already mixed up and you wouldn't get the dark crystals that didn't break up. And again, that's totally a matter of preference, whether you like the dark pigments in there or if you want it to blend out and be more subtle, then you might want to make up watercolors by just adding a little bit of water to them before you start painting. And this stuff is messy. Sometimes that's part of the fun. And then I'm going to bring in, like I said, we're going to use this stamp set, and I wanted to stamp the girl swinging coming out of the tree. And that's why I'm bringing in my Stamparatus, because I try to be good at stamping really good solid images just by stamping, but I have found that if I don't trust myself, I can use the Stamparatus, and if I don't get a perfect impression the first time, I can come back and stamp a second time or a third time, and it goes in exactly the same spot. And so I can just keep inking over and over again until I get a good dark image. So I'm going to bring this in. And again, you can use this multiple ways. It has the plate that you can move around, and I can move it on the top or on the side, however I feel most comfortable using it. You can also adjust it down so that you can evenly space sentiments. And then if you want to, you can also take any one of our stamp cases and place it underneath, and then that's going to give you a good solid surface to be able to ink up your stamp on this side without, you know, feeling like you're bending the plate. So these stamps are cling mount, which means that they're sticky on the back. All of our stamps from June forward are now all going to be cling mount. And so they're not too sticky, but they are sticky. So once you stick them to the block, they're not going to fall off, but they do come off. Because I really like to use my stickers. I know some people don't because they worry about it, but I have a tendency to stamp stuff upside down and things when I do that. So I like to be able to know that my words are right side up, and I use my stickers. This comes with a pad in there, and this is about the same thickness as the gray foam in our cling mount stamps. And you would use this if you're using photopolymer, because that will bring your paper closer up to the stamp and allow you to meet good pressure. On the back side, you'll notice there's two different magnets. I have wrapped mine in duct tape. Good thing I did too, because they snapped together and broke, and this kind of kept them semi together. And it also gives me a nice good surface to pick up on, because once it's down there, it sticks pretty good. And you know, if I had to get my fingernails, you know, underneath it, if I had fake nails, that probably wouldn't work. But if I put this on here, then all I do is pull up on the tape and it comes up easily enough. Like I said, we're going to be gluing on this tree. And so what I would want to do is kind of figure out where my tree is going to be so that I can line up her ropes that come off of her swing. And then I'm just going to close and pick it up. So you just place the stamp wherever you want it, and then you close, press down on the plate, and now it's going to stick to the plate. And then this is where we're going to ink it. Now I'm going to be using Memento Black, which isn't too bad. I also have inked it before with some of our big pads on video, and it does work. You have to be a little careful that you don't, tilt, because it will pick up ink on the plate. But that might be where our Stampin' Spots might come in handy. We do sell Stampin' Spots in our catalog that are uninked. And so you can buy a set of those and then ink them with whatever color that you want. And then you would have your own set of tiny little, they also come in our paper pumpkin kits. And so if you're a paper pumpkin subscriber, you will get them where they have the little labels on them. The uninked spots do not have labels. And so that's why on the back of all of mine, I take a 1-inch circle punch and I punch out the color cardstock that this is, so that when they're stored upside down, so that the ink will float to the top of the pad, so they're nice and juicy when I go to use them. Then I can just pop off the lid, and you can see how, since this is so much smaller, it would be easy to ink up that stamp. But I'm going to go ahead and ink it with the Memento Black. And like I said, I'm not going to do a real good job of stamping because I want to show you how it works. So see how she's very light? I mean, some people might say, oh, well, I can make that work, or, whatever. But I don't have to. I can come back in with my ink pad once again, and I can ink it up, and then I can close, and it goes in exactly the same spot. And she gets darker. So then I can do this again. And she gets darker. So however many times I wanted to do this, I can keep doing this over and over and over again until I'm happy with how dark the image is. And see, even though those little ropes are so thin, you can't tell that I've double stamped that. It just, like the detail on her hair, the back of her dress, I mean, everything is exactly as it would have been if I'd only stamped it once, but I was able to stamp it 3 times, adding more ink every time, getting a darker image, and it didn't, you can't tell I did it. So I've tried before with the photopolymer, and sometimes I can look through the stamp and see where I'm going, and if it's not real detailed, I can get it back in there. But if it had these little ropes, there's no way I'd be able to re-stamp it, even if the stamps were photopolymer. And these being red rubber, there is no way I would be able to match that up without the use of my wonderful Stamparatus. So that's very good for that. So I'll clean this up later. Normally I would clean it up right away, but I don't want to have you guys watch me do that. So here I've got the little tree. And so I'm just going to mount it over the little ropes, and so that it's off the edge. And then I've got a basic black cardstock. And so this is just one of our papers cut in half and scored in half. So I ended up with 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. It's scored down this way, so there's a valley in my paper. I'm going to turn the valley into a mountain and go this way. And then I can adhere this down to the top. Now I may want to adhere that and then stick on my tree, but if I'm going to be mailing it, I'm not going to want that tree to be sticking over the edge. I'm going to want that to be nice and flush. And so what I think I'm going to do is put this on ahead of time. So I'm going to come in with our fine tip glue pen and just add a little tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. We don't need a whole lot of this glue. A little bit goes a long way. And so what I tend to do is find the wider spots, the tree limbs rather than the leaves, or maybe if there's a big cluster of leaves. And I'm just adding little bits of glue randomly around. Then I can bring it over, set it down. where I want it. And then I can come in with my paper snips and snip off this excess. So I may be able to use a little bit if I wanted to let it, you know, hang over onto my 1/4 inch border, or I can cut them all flush. Now again, I cut this off and maybe there wasn't enough glue up here, so I can just bend this over and add just a tiny bit of glue. I also have some of our multi-purpose glue. This is the Tombow liquid glue that's in a container that has the same kind of spout. I picked this up, you know, online or at a craft store or something, and I filled it with Tombow because I like to be able to use my adhesive remover, and I find it doesn't work on the fine tip glue, but it does work on the Tombow. So if I use Tombow glue, I'm able to pull it off. And so then all I have to do is adhere this to the front. And for that I can bring in snail. I've got that in my handy dandy little adhesive caddy. I did this as a Facebook Live a while back, and I this weekend converted that to my YouTube channel. So I have edited that video, added in the item numbers, the measurements, all that are right there on the video, and it's on my YouTube channel. So head on over there and subscribe to that. I'm Queen Bee Creations all over the place. The .com will go to my Etsy store. The .net goes to my blog. I'm Queen Bee Creations on Instagram, Pinterest, all of those. You'll find me out there. So there's our little... Now if I wanted to, I saw one of our other demos had taken and done the tree twice and just kind of let it overlap a little, which gave her a much fuller tree and added a little bit of depth. Again, if you weren't going to be mailing it and you were okay with it popping up, you might even want to put her a little bit on dimensionals underneath the thicker limbs so that it would pop up and give it more dimension. But it's up to you. Like I said, this is a creative process. So however you want to do things, it's going to be fine. You don't have to do things exactly the way I do. That's the fun of stamping. You get to do it however you want. So this has a bunch of different sentiments that are in it and some more images. Because I've got the girl in the swing, I think I'll come in with the boy in his little airplane. I'll use this sentiment. Life was meant for good friends and great adventures. Again, I'm going to put this in here with my handy dandy heavy duty magnet. So this is just a piece of Whisper White because I'm just going to do some plain stamping. And this allows me to move the stamps around, decide where I want them, just adjust it to how I'm happy with it. And again, I've got the grid paper in here, so if you wanted to, you could lay a ruler across and make sure that you're lined up exactly. And you can also, there's grids on here. So I don't know if you can see, but we can, Master, I did pretty good. But there are grid lines within the plate. And so I can line up the words and make sure that they're straight across on one of these lines so that they're not crooked. Another great use for the Stamparatus. Come back with my Memento black ink. It's also fabulous if I tend to make cards for Etsy, and I will make lots of cards at the same time. And this allows me to do this multiple times and get multiple copies. So if you're making wedding invitations or thank you notes or something that you're going to want a lot of, you want a Stamparatus. Now I'm going to give a little more ink to the little boy because I wanted him darker. I could have done the words as well because that will still, even though they're pretty fine and detailed, I could add more ink and it would stamp in exactly the same spot. So there we have it. There's our card using the Stampin' Up! Pigment Sprinkles. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed our little demonstration here as we played around with silhouette scenes and the sweet silhouette dies that coordinate with that. Stamping using our Stamparatus and our pigment sprinkles. And they come in our Stampin' Up! Colors and have wonderful little lids that close easily and keep things from popping out. Again, you want to make sure you're not using very much. Very light-handed is all that you need. And happy creating. I will see you next Monday. Thanks. Bye.